welcome back to the Bene channel. I am really excited to have today's guest here with us, Kathy Kelly. Kathy is a peace activist and has worked to help people in Yemen, Gaza, Afghanistan, and Iraq. She has brought attention to U.S. involvement in these war zones and the horrifying effects of war. Kathy, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Well, Rosie, I was looking forward to today. Thank you for inviting me. It's great to see you again.
It's great to see you too. So, Kathy, I know that you have worked really hard to bring attention to what's going on in Yemen right now. I was wondering if you would be able to tell our audience and me about what is happening there and about what we can do about it to help.
Well, I do think that the worst human catastrophe in the world today is in Yemen, and it troubles me deeply that I'll open up the newspaper and think surely there's going to be some news about Yemen in a mainstream paper like the New York Times. And most days, and the New York Times pays more attention than most papers, but most days there's no attention. And so the children are the ones paying the price. The United Nations actually said that one child dies every 75 seconds in Yemen. And the children are so vulnerable because, they aren't getting enough food. Many of them are suffering from severe acute malnourishment. And then if they don't get clean water, the combinations of gastroenteritis and starvation, it's really a tortuous way to die. And the person who's in charge of the World Food Program that is with the United Nations, David Beasley, and he was a kind of a corporate executive. I think Trump appointed him. He doesn't mince words. He says this is hell. So why does it continue? Why can't there be some kind of a resolution? And I actually think it's got to do with greed. Yemen is a poor country right now, but it shouldn't be. It's resource rich. And particularly, it has this very strategic location with the port called Bab el-Mandeb, through which ships laden with fossil fuels are passing all the time. And so lots of countries would like to control that port. And the evidence for that is in the huge military bases that have been built near that port. China, now Russia's trying to build one. The French and the United States all have big military bases. But the Saudis in 2015, under Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince, believed that they could start a war, and how could they not win? They had all this capacity for airstrikes, and Obama said, yeah, we'll support you. And well, it turned out that they, to this day, have not militarily been able to triumph over what are, the group is actually officially Ansar Allah, but often called the Houthi. Well, the Houthi are fighting on their territory. And for them to surrender at this point would be it's just not going to happen. They've been fighting for so long and they keep gaining territory. Why would they say, okay, the Saudis can be in control of us? But unfortunately, the United Nations Resolution 2216, which is the only resolution that was ever passed, and basically the Saudis wrote it. It's been in effect since 2016. This resolution says, it names only one warring group, the Houthi, and says that the warring group has to lay down its arms. And so people have said, well, that not only is that not likely to happen, but also that's what justifies this terrible, terrible blockade. And the UN is used to impose the blockade. They have what they call verification and inspection missions at every single ship before it can go anywhere near berthing or docking at a port city. Has to be inspected, every nook and cranny inspected, and people have to sign off and say we didn't find any weapons, but then they still aren't able to actually dock and enter. In the month of May, not a single ship with fuel was able to enter into Yemen. Well, how can you carry food and water and supplies if you don't have fuel. And it isn't that the Houthi are angels. They actually have set up checkpoints and they say, you're going to have to give us a little money if you want that truckload to go through. So there's, it's not an either or, it's not a black and white situation. But I would say that in terms of weapons going to the war, what the Houthi have are drones that they've manufactured through using 3D technology. They probably got it from another country like Iran. And they've been hitting Saudi Arabia with those. But otherwise, you see guys in sandals with Kalashnikovs in, dilapidated trucks. But then, if you and I could take a trip to the port of Baltimore off of Maryland's coast, every month this ship from a Saudi shipping line, the Bari Jeddah, is loaded up with very, very sophisticated weapons. And the United States has been selling to Saudi Arabia the ships that are used to enforce the blockade. And some of them are made right here in the Midwest at the Marinette shipyard. We've been selling them these laser guided missiles that are just grotesque in the suffering that they inflict. We've sold them all kinds of systems for weapons, plus the maintenance for those systems, plus the guidance for those systems, plus teachers who say, you have to learn how to use these weapons. So we're very, very involved in that war as a country. And twice the Congress and the Senate said, stop. We don't want the United States government to continue to support the Saudi coalition in the war. And Trump, when he was president, vetoed both of those resolutions. But now we have to wonder, well, where's a new resolution? Shouldn't it be coming down the pike? When are we going to hear 4 words? I'm introducing a resolution. It's been way, way too long. And that kind of inactivity by the Biden administration does make you wonder, because even a group of senators and Congress people wrote a letter to Biden seeking answers. Okay, you don't want to give the Saudis offensive weapons. Well, you are giving them defensive weapons. What's the difference? What are they still getting? 2 months later, they still didn't have an answer. And when the answer came, it was a non-answer. So I guess our role is to keep on saying, you can't sacrifice children. We have to ban child sacrifice. It's barbaric, it's primitive, it's cruel, and it creates trauma that goes on for generations. So we have to say, and Bernie Sanders did say it, he got angry. He said, lift the goddamn blockade. But it didn't lift. And we need, I think, much more vigor in trying to insist that people in Yemen have a right, a basic human right to live and to eat and to have medicines and water.
That's so true. Thank you, Kathy, for sharing.
Thank you for asking.
Mhm. So I know that you have traveled and even lived in war zones. Also, through the years, you've been working so hard for peace in some very difficult situations. What are the spiritual practices that you find helpful for maintaining compassion and resolve?
Well, I was glad to see that question. And I think that one thing that means a lot to me is that stories are a way for us to make sense of our reality. When we have a story, we just are better able to grapple with questions and exploration, curiosity about the realities of other people and our own relationship to that. So I think about the Old Testament and the New Testament, Ta Biblia, it's basically a collection of stories. And those stories helped to move humanity. The story of Abraham and Isaac. Abraham was going to slay his beloved only son. And the angel of the Lord says, don't do it. Well, that story, they got beyond child sacrifice. So, here we are still practicing child sacrifice with our wars and our sanctions. But I think we should never underestimate the power of stories and our collective stories and the stories of the people whom we really, really do want to follow and for good reasons. So, stories are one thing I really appreciate in terms of spirituality. And the other thing I can say, I'm sometimes a bit hesitant, but I have a very dear friend. He's in his 90s, Neville Watson. And one time I was actually in Australia at his church, and somebody had asked me, what motivates you? And I went back to talking about the nuns who taught me in grade. And he interrupted me and he said, well, I reckon I've known you for a long time. He said, that's not what motivates you. What motivates you is you fall in love. And I think that's actually about what it comes down to. If we can kind of fall in love easily with other people whose um, reality and humanity are so interesting, who often are just willing to embrace us with unearned hospitality and give us the benefit of the doubt, even though we've been trashing the planet and making their lives so difficult through our following of warlords. I think that that's a good route for spirituality. I like the way Ammon Hennessy put it. He said, look for the blend of love and courage and wisdom. And then he said something about, not the wisdom of academics, not the courage of soldiers, not just romantic love, but you're going to find that when you're looking for creating a better world.
Wow, Kathy, I love that. That's beautiful. And my last question is, what does nonviolence mean to you?
Mm. Well, that certainly has been an evolving question for me. And it's very challenging for me right now because, here we are facing climate catastrophe and serious pandemics. So I don't really think anybody's going to put a gun in my hands, Rosie. I just can't imagine it. So whether I would shoot a gun or not is pretty irrelevant. But if I ask myself, am I trying to live more simply? Am I trying to reduce my level of consumption? Am I trying to live in more harmony with the planet by being conscious of how much I use? Well, that's an important nonviolence question. And then, am I trying to share resources more radically? For me, it doesn't really matter about sharing a job, a paid job, or sharing income, because I haven't really worked an income earning paid job in quite a long time. But shared housing, shared food. I don't know how to drive, but approving of shared transportation. These are all aspects of nonviolence. Are we sharing our resources more equitably and more radically? So that's a big question for me because I think I used to do more of that and more radically in my younger years. I remember we'd always have a crash room for somebody who might need a place to stay. And so that's a big one. And then a third one is do I prefer service to dominance? Um, that sure, boy, going to prison helped me as a teacher enormously because I said to myself, I will never be the warden again, not ever. It even affected how I would behave if I was a volunteer in a shelter. I just cannot be the warden, but I can always get better at preferring service to dominance. And gosh, there's so much domination we take for granted as though somehow, we've got a God given right to be making decisions for other people and dominating the world's resources. So, those are the kinds of questions about nonviolence that I think are so important. And then also, are we organizing our lives so that we can learn to live together without killing one another?
Wow. Thank you so much, Kathy. I just love hearing from you. This has been such an honor for me. Thanks for being here.
Oh, well, thank you, Rosie. It's wonderful to be with you. And if any of your listeners would like to explore these ideas further or argue against anything I've said or get clarification of thought, I'd be pleased as can be to hear from them. So feel free to share my email, and I'm actually also teaching a course coming up. So people are welcome to join that and learn from some of my co-teachers who happen to be young people in Afghanistan and India.
Yeah. Could you tell me more about how that is going? How that
Well, I had a month off, which was kind of
Yeah.
good, but it's every Saturday with a Zoom call for 8 weeks, starting in July, but people can enroll when they wish. Um, we had 46 people the first time around, and that was a good number.
Yeah.
And people from different parts of the world and many different time zones. And we stayed in touch with current news as well. So when Israel was attacking Gaza, we had a young woman from Gaza join us unexpectedly, but very importantly. And so, yeah, we try to keep it resilient, I guess. But there is a core of information, and anybody's welcome to copy it and plagiarize it and use it however they like.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And audience, please look into the description. I'll put all of these resources below. Kathy, thank you again so much.
Thank you, Rosie, and hello to your audience.
Thank
Bye bye.